Hello, and welcome to the Lead Connecticut Leadership Institute session on improving performance through a systemic human capital approach. I'm Jim Smith, and I'm your narrator from the District Management Council, and it's my pleasure to be with you today to speak with you on this important topic. To develop a systemic approach to human capital, today we will focus on two primary topics, first of which will paint the landscape of the K-12 sector in telling a story that is becoming all too familiar, that there are countless pressures that school leaders are facing that are making everything just more of a challenge in today's environment. And the second of which, we will dive specifically into human capital and to figure out how managing people is an effective lever that school district leaders can use to improve performance within their school systems. What you may be wondering is, does managing human capital really matter? And so, to respond to any skeptics that are potentially listening to this, we did a little bit of research on this particular topic. And what you'll see, based on a seminal research study, is that school systems that have relational trust score in a sizable way better across math and reading scores than districts that have low relational trust. And we're using relational trust as a way of capturing the sophistication and the rigor of a human capital system, so that you can see, when done well, it can lead to what the ultimate goal is, more learning for students. So how do we build engagement and trust in our school districts today? And the unfortunate part of the story is that building engagement trust is becoming even harder, as a difficult job of leading a school district is becoming even more complex and increasingly more complex. There are multiple pressures that are creating this complexity and this difficult environment to manage a school district. First of all, students themselves have greater and greater needs that are coming into our districts. More students with disabilities, more English language learners, more students that are coming from families of poverty. On top of this, governance pressures and accountability pressures are putting an undue toll on school districts, all at the same time that Common Core is raising the bar academically, and budgets are getting tighter and looking to be tighter for the foreseeable future. The students that districts are serving today are more complex and have greater needs. If we take a look at across the country, the increasing rates of students on free and reduced lunch, English language learners, and students with disabilities, we'll see that students on free and reduced lunch and English language learners have increased by about a quarter over the last 10 years, and students with disabilities have increased by 7%. And all of this is leading to greater complexity in our school systems today. Common Core is making a huge difference in the academic standards across the country. A recent study was done in Kentucky where they examined the number of students that were proficient or above in elementary reading, historically based on No Child Left Behind and currently based on the Common Core. And as you can see, based on the same cohort of students, there was a large decrease in the number of students that were proficient or above in elementary reading based on the increased rigor and expectations of the Common Core standards. Budgets are getting tighter, and unlike tough budget times in the past that you could wait out for a year or two and things would get better, the immediate future, medium future, and long-term future is that looking like the way that we spent money in the past is no longer the way that we can spend money in the future. And the reason is that there are large factors such as healthcare and pensions that are putting massive amounts of pressure on tax dollars. Healthcare spending is going up. Pension unfunded liabilities are increasing, all of which, on top of increasing federal deficits and a lack of a desire to increase taxes, are all putting pressure on ed sector dollars that are making budgets tighter for now and the future. Given these many challenges, school districts need great teachers, great administrators to solve these very important problems. But if we look at great teachers as an example, the unfortunate news is that many high-performing teachers are leaving, especially if we look at it after 5 years. A recent study done by the New Teacher Project demonstrated this phenomenon where they started with a group of 100 teachers, looked at the high-performing teachers, and then looked at how many teachers were left after a 5-year period of time. And as you can see, only about half remain after 5 years that were making the greatest gains in the classroom. And then diving into the data even more specifically, most of those teachers were being lost from the district after year 1 and after year 2, which hints at a need for a strong induction program as well as richer human capital practices. This brings us to the second part of our presentation. In the last few pages, we talked a lot about all of the different challenges that are making the K-12 sector even more complex to lead. Now we'll talk about how human capital is one of the levers that districts can use to manage people so that they can improve their academic performance for the benefit of students. Often we see that a typical human resources system makes human capital decisions that are isolated and not connected to one another. And what we mean by this is that recruiting and hiring could be done almost primarily in HR and central office and not be connected to the school buildings and the principals, as an example. Another example is an induction program that's essentially non-existent. Professional development that is not connected to the needs of the classroom. Teacher evaluation that does not appropriately differentiate between which students are learning and which students, quite frankly, aren't. And career management that isn't truly based on potential. There are a number of other examples where human capital can break down, but in general, our guidance is to move past an isolated human capital system to one that is connected. Thinking about human capital differently means thinking about human capital from an integrated perspective. DMC has a human capital framework that frames the important steps in the human capital process. Everything from the candidate's education, certification, etc., those important preparation and background characteristics, though how a district is recruiting and attracting the candidate to be hired by the district, to once they are hired, the first year or first couple years, the induction program of bringing them on board, to the long-term performance management program that covers everything from career tracking, succession planning, the evaluation program, etc. Rather than thinking about all of those things as being unique and separate initiatives, our guidance is to think about all of those as being a piece of a larger picture that is human capital. So now we'll dive into a few different ways that districts can go about improving their human capital practices. So one of which is to think about the selection process in a different way. And to do so, think about how the interviews could be structured to give a better insight in terms of how a particular candidate will perform once they're in the job. Just about every district has a traditional behavior interview for all candidates, which is a great way of figuring out the qualifications that the candidate had historically. However, what we encourage is that districts, whether you're a principal candidate or a teacher candidate, really think about the job that the person will be conducting. So, for a principal, are they able to use student data across the building? Can they accurately evaluate a teacher's instruction, give good feedback? All of these important features of what a principal will be asked to do, can that be included into the interview process? And then on the teacher side, quite simply, do they model an exemplary lesson? Do they demonstrate strong instruction? Can they use data, formative assessments, to strengthen their instruction over time so that they keep on getting better? And then the other side of it is motivational profiling. So once we know someone has the right skills, do they believe in the right thing? Do they believe that all students can learn? As an example of having their will and behavior be supportive of their career and ultimately of students' benefit. Induction can be a very powerful tool to increase retention. Based on a research study, what we found is that attrition can be reduced by 65% approximately just through an induction program. Now, induction comes in multiple different shapes and sizes, and so that you'll see is if you're just doing a little bit of induction, two components as an example, you'll see that the attrition rate actually is very similar to if you're doing no induction at all. So doing a little bit doesn't make a huge difference and a sizable change in decreasing attrition. However, if you start to have a more sophisticated induction program, three components as an example, it actually almost cuts your attrition in half based on a 3-component induction program. However, increasing to 4, 5, 6, all the way to 6 components actually, again, doesn't make that big of a difference. And it's not till you get to a system of 8 that you go all the way down to 7%. So really important to think about the trade-off of putting in a lot of time into an induction program and when does it really make the biggest difference. And in terms of applying resources to developing an induction program, it seems that 3 is the magic number to reduce attrition but also be wise in spending resources. A huge part of human capital is the performance management system. It essentially is the core human capital program for the employees within a school district. From a DMC perspective, it has multiple different components. When we're using the term performance management, we're meaning everything from career tracking and succession planning to how a district is staffing and allocating resources, to compensation and rewards, to its professional development, as well as the formal evaluation program. So our definition for performance management is quite wide and comprehensive in covering a number of different human capital topics that are all important in making a robust and integrated system. Part of a performance management program, and a very important part, is the teacher evaluation program. PMC's guidance is to think about the distribution of performance when thinking about how to best use a teacher evaluation program. Often we find in applying this thinking in districts that the district leadership can quickly say who the top teachers are or who the bottom teachers are, the ends of the spectrum on the bell curve. But often it's the huge number of people that are in the middle that actually can lead to a lot of performance gains and improved academic success for students. For the bottom people, our guidance is to give them an opportunity to improve to an extent, but if they continue to have unsatisfactory performance, then ultimately it becomes time for them to exit the profession and to find another career choice, since being within a school system isn't the best choice for that particular individual. Conversely, on the other side of the spectrum, for those people that are your very top performers, to look for ways to make sure that they stay within the district first and foremost, and then to question how can their success be leveraged or extended to other teachers across the school district. So it goes beyond the confines of their own classroom. And then the third strategy is to think about all the middle performers and to think about how their performance can improve so that the entire performance curve can shift to the right and more teachers can perform at a high level. Managing careers is an exciting opportunity for districts to really get the most out of their employees. Often we find that districts assess past performance. There is some type of evaluation system for administrators, for teachers, etc., that you can figure out who are your top performers and who are your bottom performers. However, we find that it's rare that districts are thinking about the past performance and also the future potential in a rigorous way when thinking about career development. And ultimately, thinking about both pieces performance and potential are critical to figuring out who your future leaders are within the district. And so in the 2x2 matrix on the slide, essentially there is a specific strategy for each different quadrant. And so just to kind of walk through this, if someone is doing well at their job right now, but they really don't have a lot of future potential, keep them where they are and keep them contributing to the school district because they're doing great work, but there isn't an opportunity for them to be promoted. They're really at the top of their level. Conversely, if someone is simply, they're not doing well and they don't have any future potential, those are similar to the bell curve on the previous page. Those underperforming people either need to turn things around and start to improve, or potentially are candidates for exiting the district. And then as we move to people that have future potential, people that are doing well in their job and have a lot of potential, those are your stars. Those are the people that you want to keep engaged, extend their successes to others, and really put them in positions to succeed and to grow. And then if someone has potential for a future position, but isn't necessarily performing up to their current task, there is an opportunity to invest in them and to figure out how can the district put them in an appropriate situation to best use their talents. But ultimately, thinking about things from a performance and potential perspective is a really interesting way to think about career management within a school system.